And what I heard some of you say is that your yoga practice serves for you as a refuge from everything that is difficult and disturbing in the world, that you have a place of refuge that you can come to. And in thinking about when we come to the mat seeking that place of refuge, I was thinking about, well, is it an escapism? Is it some people might interpret it that way, that we're just sitting here on our mats with our eyes closed, contemplating our navel or moving through these postures, and how does that actually contribute to making positive change in the world? And what comes to my mind is something that is attributed to Albert Einstein, who basically said, you can't solve a problem or fix a situation using the same level of consciousness, the same mindset that created the problem. So what we need to do in order to be able to rise above any difficult situation on a micro level or macro level, a grand scale, or just in our personal lives, is we need to create a shift in consciousness so that we're looking at the situation with a higher level of consciousness than that which created the problem. So in order to create change in the world, we need to begin by working with our own minds, our own consciousness, in order to create that shift. And yoga practice is actually really much more working with the mind than just doing a series of stretches on the mat. What yoga is really a multi-layered process, a multi-dimensional process that includes working with the body, because when we work with the body and the breath, we shift energy, we shift the flow of prana, which has an effect on our thinking and our mind and our consciousness and which affects our thoughts, and what affects our thoughts affects our words and actions. So it also prepares us for meditation, which creates even deeper shifts in our consciousness. So we're working on many layers of our being, and doing the hatha yoga, which is what we do here on the mat, the postures and the breathing, is working with one layer of our being which shifts other layers. And the other aspects, the other facets of the diamond, so to speak, of what is yoga practice, has to do with the ethical principles and the codes of conduct that we engage in as we move through the world. So in addition, when you look at classical yoga practice, it's not just about the asanas and the working with the breath are just a couple of those aspects of the whole multifaceted diamond that is yoga. And the other aspects include what's known as the yamas and niyamas, which are these ethical codes of conduct. So it's working with our mind and our actions in the world. And just a couple of those that are relevant here to our how we conduct ourselves in the world in a situation where there's violence, where activism is called for. A couple of those qualities that I want to bring to mind are, one, ahimsa. You may have heard me use that word before. Ahimsa, which is the practice of nonviolence. And we might think nonviolence just has to do with not hurting somebody physically, not killing someone. And we can say, oh, I practice nonviolence because I've never hurt anyone. I've never beaten anyone. But there are many, many, many subtle layers of violence in the way that we think, in the words that we speak, in the attitudes that we have towards others and to ourselves. So we begin to examine the ways that unprocessed violence can come up within ourselves, within our own thinking. So that's one aspect of working with yoga off the mat or beyond the mat. And another one of these qualities that we work with, one of the niyamas, is Swadhyaya, which means self-study or self-inquiry or self-examination. So we look at the workings of our own minds and we look how we might in some way be contributing to the imbalances and the problems in the world. Not to beat ourselves up, but just to show up in a more conscious way. And another way is to what's called Ishwara Pranayama, or surrender, cultivating a quality of surrender to a higher spiritual power. So we're not just living in being driven by our egoic minds, but by a higher power, however we envision that, however we connect with that. I just want to share with you just something that Ram Dass wrote back in 1970. And somebody just posted this on the internet, where he talked about how does us sitting in meditation or practicing yoga connect with spiritual activism. And he said, when I was in India in the temple, I was sitting there. And there was a river flowing by and there were birds chirping and it was gentle and I was meditating. And I felt this great feeling of well-being and calmness, and I thought, what am I doing here? Why aren't I on the front lines? Why aren't I back fighting? Why aren't I back doing what I believe for what I believe? You know, protesting against injustice and so on. Am I copping out? Is this like a real battle rest station? What kind of scene am I in? Is this a cop-out? And then I began to see that staying alone in that room at that moment was confronting me with an internal battle, which was much fiercer than any external battle I had ever fought before. And until I had found some way through that internal battle, all I could do was get sucked into the external manifestations of it in such a way as to perpetuate them. Right? I began to see that it was absolutely imperative in terms of socially responsible, effective behavior. I'll say that again. I began to see that it was absolutely imperative in terms of socially responsible, effective behavior that I work on myself sufficiently. So that I could look at any human being and see that place in them behind whatever their melodrama is. Be it Nixon, or a hippie, or Mao, or Hitler, or Schweitzer, or Hot Monkey, or whatever person strip is, to be able to see behind that. Until I was centered enough, until I was in that place in myself, I couldn't really know that place in other beings. I saw that finally my responsibility was to work on myself. Come into your yogic seat and grow long through your spine from your root to your crown, and soften your shoulders down away from your ears. Lift a little higher through the crown of the head while keeping the chin level, and let your heart expand a little wider open. Let the shoulders move away from the ears and the wingtips of the shoulder blades toward the center of the back. And let's just take a moment to breathe together. Letting your breath become slow and deep, in and out through the nose. Filling all the way up into the chest. Pausing at the top to enjoy the fullness of breath. Knowing that every deep breath has the ability, the power to shift consciousness. Exhaling, releasing, emptying chest, ribs, and belly. Pausing in emptiness before inviting in the next deep breath. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony within the home. When there's harmony within the home, there's order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there is peace in the world. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony within the home. When there's harmony within the home, there's order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there is peace in the world. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure that you're engaging your Ujjayi breath with a gentle engagement of the glottis, little slight narrowing of the airway so the breath makes that whisper sound in the back of the throat, like the sound of ocean waves. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony within the home. When there's harmony within the home, there's order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there is peace in the world. So the words of this ancient proverb remind us that peace in the world begins right here with this breath that you are breathing right now. The shifts that we create in our own consciousness have the power to ripple outward as it affects how we move through the world with others, engaging with others, in our friendships and our relationships and in our communities and larger circles. It begins right here with this breath that you are breathing now. And acknowledging the largest of circles, the circle which has no edge to it, the circle of all beings. Let's bring the hands together in front of the heart and join our voices in the sound of Om. Taking a deep breath in. And refresh your posture. Let your spine be long and lifted. And let the breath lift the arms. We'll take some seated sun breaths just to begin to sync up the breathing and the movement and the attention. Arms reach out to the horizons. Reach from the fingertips on your right hand to the fingertips on your left hand. Grow a little longer. Let that open your heart nice and wide. Turn the palms up and let the hands rise to the sky. Reach through the right. Reach through the left. Exhale, sweep the arms wide and down. And again, being centered on your sit bones, long in the spine, reach up. Fill all the way up to the top of the chest. Exhale completely. And again, lift and lengthen. And sweep wide and down. Inhale, lift and rise up like the rising sun. Exhale to your right into a twist. I'm mirroring you here with right and left. Squeeze out all the breath as you deepen into the twist. Inhale up to center. Exhale, other side. And inhale up to center, again, twist to the right. Inhale, center. Exhale to the left. Inhale up. Palms come together, back to the heart. Maybe using that gesture of any time the palms return to Anjali Mudra, prayer position. It's coming back to that place of center, that place of refuge. Left arm reaches and rises, right palm roots down. Find length and space through the left side of the body and come into a side bend. That left arm stays long, elbow straight, reach through the fingertips, anchoring down through both sitting bones. Exhale, release, and notice the difference between your right and left side. Right side lengthens, reach fingertips up, and notice if you're going into Scrunchasana here with the shoulders, and see if you can soften the right shoulder down away from the ear. Take it into a side bend. Letting the rib cage expand, open. All that whole line of fascia through the whole side body here, expanding and lengthening. And release. Roll the shoulders one way. Make any noises that seem appropriate, any letting go sounds, either with a sigh or maybe a hoarse breath. We can't hear you, so any sound you want to make is fine. Circle the shoulders the other way. And come back into stillness. Just turn the palms up on the lap. Take a moment to pause and feel the flow of prana moving through you, whatever energy has increased, whatever restriction has been released. And uncross the legs and shake them out. And give them a little pat down. Invite the blood to come back into the legs. Sometimes the legs fall asleep when we sit cross-legged for a while. Give them a little rub, a little massage. And coming into Dandasana, the staff pose, which is like mountain pose with your shoulders stacked over your hips and your knees in line with your hip pointers, ankles in line with the knees, just like mountain, except you're jackknifed, folded up at the hips. Palms come right underneath your shoulders and point and flex the feet. And circle the feet, toes circling outward in opposite directions. And circling inward. And then from here, swing the legs around back behind you. And I'm going to invite you to come into a position where, I just have to fix the lighting changed all of a sudden. I don't know why. Okay. So I'm going to invite, and this may not be appropriate for everyone. So some of you might find that using your blocks or even a pillow or bolster underneath you would be more appropriate. I'm going to invite you to come and sit on your heels. And I'll show you from the back what that looks like. Your toes are going to curl under, and you're going to have your sit bones right on the backs of your heels and Achilles tendon area. This is a tight stretch, a deep stretch for the quads, and may not be comfortable or appropriate for everyone's knees. So if it's not appropriate for you, then you could take your blocks, either one block or a stack of 2 blocks, and come to the front edge of that stack and sit on the blocks. And in that way, you can still, I'll turn sideways so you can see, you can still have your toes curled under and stretch the bottoms of the feet without having to put so much of the weight on them. And even this may be too strong for some of you with certain knee issues. So in that case, you can sit either on a chair or you can sit cross-legged if that's more comfortable. Or maybe just pointing your toes back behind you and sitting on the blocks might make it a little easier on the knees and quads. So find the expression of this that's comfortable for you. If you notice that you're sitting on your heels and you're compensating by leaning forward rather than having your shoulders stacked over your hips, then that's a sign that maybe you need to support yourself with the blocks. So find a way that your torso can be aligned vertically as you stretch the bottoms of the feet, the arches, the whole connection, the fascia, the connecting tissue on the bottom of the feet, stretching the quads. And from here, whatever expression of this pose feels comfortable for you, let the arms reach and rise. Reach through the right, reach through the left, and then exhale, bring your right arm underneath your left into eagle arms. So whether you're wrapping your wrists, that may or may not be available to you, you can still have your thumbs pointing toward you, the backs of the hands facing one another, or wrap the wrists and bring the right fingertips inside the left palm. And lift high so the elbows come in line with the shoulders or even a little higher if that works for you, just so until you feel the juice of it through the upper back, shoulders, and upper arms. Maybe playing with it for a moment, finding circles one way, circles the other way, lifting and lowering, or maybe even bringing your hands forward and then your elbows forward to really open between the shoulder blades. And then drawing them back in, unwind and release, and come up onto your knees, point your toes back behind you, and just kind of pat them out. So you're on your knees with your hips over your knees, and let the hands come back behind you in Yoga Mudra. So you spread wide through the heart. And try to lift your clasped hands so they lift up away from your buttocks and low back and reach toward the back end of your mat. Just let this be a moment of expanding through the chest, open heart. Take a couple of deep breaths in and out through the nose here in Yoga Mudra. And release. Let the arms hang, shake them out for a moment. And then staying on your left knee, reach your right knee out to the side, coming into preparation for gate pose. Your toes are going to point straight out to the right, on your right, so your right leg is extended. Your hip pointer's pointing straight ahead toward the front of your mat. And you can either have your foot flexed or flat. Let the left arm rise, reach straight up, find that length and space, and open your gate. Sliding the right hand down toward the foot. Maybe bringing back of the hand to press into the calf, and that will invite the torso to rotate open and stay in line with the hips. Your whole body's in one plane here. And then exhale, float those left fingertips down and stay up either on fingertips, fist, or even a block underneath your shoulder. So you can stay nice and long from tippy toes to fingertips along the right side of your body, pressing the hip pointers forward and then rotating the torso open to the sky. Take some big circles of that right arm and shoulder, letting it sweep the whole body, open heart and gaze. Even the hip pointers face the sky. And the golden cord is dangling down. Reach for it. Let it draw you up and back into your gate pose. Open your gate one more time. Big breath in. And exhale, release. And come back into being on your knees. And we'll take that sequence on the other side. Sit back down on your heels. Toes curled under. Sitting on the heels. Again, I'll show you what it looks like from the back. Or using your blocks to support yourself if you need to, letting the torso be upright, letting it be vertical. Arms reach and rise. And this time the left arm is going to tuck underneath the right into your eagle arms. Reach fingertips to the sky. And take a few breaths, long, deep Ujjayi breaths to open up and explore the territory here with either circles or lifting and lowering. And the basic principle here is wherever we send our attention and our breath, using the power of attention to actually send the breath into restricted places, that is where prana is going to flow. Because prana has an intelligence. And so we use our intelligence to focus that greater intelligence of the life force into the areas where it's needed. Maybe bringing the hands forward, the elbows forward, and drawing them back in, and unwinding, shaking out the arms, coming up onto your knees. And once again, clasp hands behind you, big wide open heart, squeezing the shoulder blades toward the center. Big breath in. Just breathe in and out of that lotus of the heart. Letting those clasp hands reach toward the back of your mat. If it's difficult to straighten your elbows, you can use a strap. Give yourself a little space between your hands that way. And releasing. Let the left leg come straight out beside you to come into alongside, in line with your hip, out to the left, to come into gate pose. Let the right arm rise, reach straight up from knee to fingertips, and open your gate. Keep that upper shoulder rolled open, the whole body, except for that lower leg that you're kneeling on is in one plane. Keep the hip pointers drawing forward, and then exhale, sweep those right fingertips down, either be on fingertips, fists, or a block. One long line, half circle, press the hips forward, reach long, grow an inch longer from toes to fingertips, and take those big sweeping circles, rotating the whole torso open to the sky. Lots of deep Ujjayi breaths here. Reach for the golden cord that's hanging down and let it slowly draw you up. And open your gate one more time. And release. Come back to being on your knees here. And I'm going to invite you to come into table pose in with two options. Option one would be to sit on your heels, toes pointed back, open through the heart here, fold over the legs, and come into yoga mudra, first starting on the forehead and then rolling up onto the crown of the head, hips over knees. Maybe just taking a moment to massage the crown of the head. And then from here, you would release your hands and press up into table. I'll give you a moment to play with that. Others might find it's more comfortable just to come right into table pose and begin your cat-cow. And see if as you move into your cat-cow spinal waves, see if you can discover something that you haven't noticed about your spine or your pelvis. Let it be a moment of self-inquiry. Swadhyaya. Maybe coming up on fingertips to get a little bit more lift in that cat stretch. And if there's any other movement here that feels like it's calling to you, maybe circling the hips. One way or the other way, or maybe some of you want to take a wagging the dog side to side, wagging the tail. Wag the dog, wag the tail. Wag both. Any movements that intuitively call to you. And come back to center, back to table. And then from here, we'll take it into another twist, the thread the needle pose. So in your thread the needle, start with your right hand reaching and rising up to the sky. So you're turning your heart to the right, stacking your right shoulder on top of your left. Exhale, thread it through, reaching, bending your left elbow and reach to 90 degrees, reach your right fingertips through. So now your right shoulder tucks under your left. Reach it through and then lower that arm down, lower the side of the head down. Some of you may need to put a blanket underneath your head and shoulders if it's really too far to reach the floor. And give a little press into your left hand to juice up this twist a little bit. Tuck your right shoulder under a little bit more. Keep your hips over your knees so your thigh bones are going straight up and down, vertical. And either stay here in this twist, giving it a little energy by pressing into your left palm, which is just on the mat here. Your elbow is still sticking up. Or release that left hand and bring it around back behind you into a bind. Either back of the left hand just meets the right hip, or you slip your pinky in the crease of the hip and grab your right thigh. Walk your left fingertips inside the thigh to roll open that left shoulder. And just for fun here, some of you may want to stay here, and some of you may want to take it deeper by sliding your left foot back, lifting the left hip, straightening your left leg, pressing out through the left heel, and rolling open the left hip so that the twist moves down the spine toward the lower back. And sometimes it's helpful for balance to curl the right toes under here for a little more stability. And if you can, this is optional here, extend that left leg and float the toes straight up to the sky. So you have one long line that goes from your right shoulder on the mat to your left toes. Lift it high so it's an unbroken diagonal. If you fall over, just get back up. It's not a big deal. You're not going to hurt yourself. You don't have far to fall. And slowly release, coming back into table pose as you unwind and come back up. Hands and knees, take a couple of cat-cows to reset the spine. And we'll take it on the other side, starting with a neutral spine. In table pose, inhale, the left hand reaches to the sky, turning your heart to the left. Big breath in, and then exhale, tuck it through and under, reach, 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 bend the right elbow, and place that left shoulder right underneath the right. Left side of the head comes down, press into the right hand. And notice how the stretch deepens a little bit as you press into your right palm. Don't let the elbow come down. Just keep the elbow sticking straight up so your arm is at a 90-degree angle. And you can either stay right here, or you can lift, you can release, and first lift your right hand to the sky, and then bring it back around behind you for your expression of the bind. Keep rolling that right shoulder open, and either stay here or see if you can slide your right foot back, letting the right hip lift and roll open a little more, bringing the twist a little lower down
the spine. Maybe curling left toes under so you can find that stability to lift, reaching the toes away from you to the place where the ceiling meets the wall. Have fun with this. When you're ready to release, slowly come back the way you came. Knee comes down, bind unwinds, and back up to your table. I'm so far away from my screen, I can't tell if anyone fell over or how you did with that, but hopefully you had fun with that. All right. Find any wiggles and waggles that feel good here. And then from your table pose, we're going to slide into puppy stretch, or heart melting pose, as it's also called. So the knees are going to stay under the hips, thighs straight up and down, and just slide the hands as far forward as you can. Fingers spread nice and wide, and melt the heart down toward the mat, and either bring your chin down or your forehead down. See if you can invite a little bit more length through the whole torso and all the way through the upper arms and lower arms out through the fingertips. Keep the sitting bones reaching back. So you're inviting the body to draw in two directions here. Forward through the hands and fingertips, back through the sitting bones. And the navel draws in and up, so you engage a gentle Uddiyana Bandha. And maybe another variation here that can help release between the shoulder blades is to come onto your fingertips, letting the palms rise up off of the mat and the wrist rise up, and actually the entire arms lift up. You don't lift your head. If you need to lift your head for a moment just to see what I'm doing, you can do that. But you're pressing straight down with the tips of your fingers, making like spider fingers. As the palms lift, the wrists lift, the lower arms, elbows, and upper arms lift, and let that heart melt down a little bit more. At the same time, you're lifting navel in and up. And then lower the palms flat, and give your hands a little pull to lower the elbows down first, and then give that little pull to come forward into Sphinx pose. Forearms are parallel to one another. The elbows are lined up right under the shoulders. And you'll root the pelvis down into the mat and activate the legs by reaching toes back. Feel the quadriceps and the kneecaps engage and lift. And all 10 toes press down through elbows, draw shoulders back, Sphinx. And some of you might find that just hanging out here for a few breaths is just what you need. Others might want to play with it a little bit by bending your knees and bringing big toes together, drawing the heels a little closer in toward the buttocks. Keep pressing down into the elbows, and maybe pressing down and forward into the hands as you straighten your arms either part way or all the way. Look up. Oh, this is optional. And lowering the elbows down. Give a little isometric pull of the elbows in toward the ribs to create a little more lengthening through the front of the torso. Float the feet back down. And from here, we'll try a little bit different way of coming into the snake pose. See if you can maintain as much of this lift as you can. As you reach your hands back behind you, we're going to come directly into snake. Keep squeezing the shoulder blades toward the center, reaching your clasp hands behind you. You can also keep your hands separate if that's easier for you. And can you transition from your snake pose right into your locust, peeling the legs off, lifting the thighs. So the legs are really energized and lines of energy shooting out the toes and shooting forward through the heart. Ujjayi breath. Notice if there's any tension or scrunching in the face and see if you can soften there with a gentle Buddha smile, edges of the mouth lifted.
And you can lower your thighs, make a pillow with the hands, and just let everything go. Turn the cheek to one side. Release and relax. Notice the rivers of energy flowing through you right now. Hands come underneath the shoulders. Press up into table, take a cat stretch, and sink back into child. Whatever expression of child you're comfortable with is fine here. Either thighs, inner thighs touching, or knees spread apart. Just keep your toes together. And then rising up into table pose, we're going to take a similar sequence from your table. Slide the hands forward into heart-melting pose or puppy stretch. Lower the elbows down, let it draw you forward into Sphinx pose. From here, Sphinx going right into the snake pose again. One more time, taking locust, firing up the legs, peeling them off. Lift, can you get those thighs off? Lifting and lengthening at the same time. And releasing, this time bringing the hands underneath the shoulders, let the forehead come down. So you start by lengthening the back of the neck. Root all 10 toes down into the mat, point the toes back, and take your cobra pose. Start with a low cobra, just a baby cobra. Just lifting the chest, the whole sternum peels off. You keep the legs energized, and if it's available, you can lift into a full cobra, keeping the pelvis rooted down, shoulders soft, heart open. And rolling down slowly, let the forehead touch. And press up through your table, back into a cat stretch and back into child. Let it all go. Rising up into table pose, one more time, coming into puppy. Exhale. Inhale, come forward into your Sphinx pose. This time we're going to come into a forearm plank. So curl your toes under and press back through the heel. Energize through the bottoms of the feet as you really flex the feet and tuck the toes under. Elbows underneath the shoulders, press down, forearms parallel, come into one long line plank pose. See if you can hold for 3 deep breaths. If it's less, that's fine. You can even come in and out of it as you choose. Try to flatten the low back rather than having the butt sticking up. You don't want to have a lumbar curve here. You want to send your tailbone back toward the back end of your mat. All the muscles in the abdomen drawing in toward the center. Back of the neck long, so look down between your wrists. And when you're ready to release, float the pelvis down, point the toes, make a pillow with the hands, turn the cheek to one side, just let it all go. Just feel the energy buzzing through you as a result of that energizing practice. I'm going to try one more core strengthening here. So come back up into your Sphinx pose. But this time, we're going to come into that forearm plank, but we'll do it as a side plank. So curl your toes under. And as you lift up, we're going to pivot
Start with the right elbow, pivot on the right elbow so the right hand comes and faces the left elbow, and your right forearm is parallel to the front of your mat. You're going to come onto the outside edge of your right foot and see if you can bring the body into one long line rather than letting the hips sag down. So you're going to really have to support this with your core, strong legs. You can lift your left hand to the sky. Your inner ankle bones are stacked on top of one another. Some of you may want to modify by bending the top leg, your left leg, and just letting that knee come to 90 degrees and your foot come flat. If you press into your foot, you can get a little more lift. And come back into Sphinx pose. Oh yeah, feel the energy you've invited into one side of the body. And curling the toes under, lift up into your plank again, pivot on that elbow to roll to the other side. You can start with your hand just by your side. Try to engage that firm body, one long line. And if it's available to have one hand to the sky, you can do that. Your elbow is right underneath your shoulder. This is a wonderful way to practice plank poses without putting strain on your wrist. Oh yeah, or use this modification here. Pressing into your foot of the top leg bending. And when you're ready, coming back into your Sphinx pose, rolling down the torso and letting the forehead come to the mat. Press up into table, take a cat stretch. And take a cow tilt, low belly toward the thighs, fingers spread wide, toes curl under, and find your downward facing dog. Hopefully you're sufficiently energized now. And take a few breaths to take your dog for a slow, mindful walk. One heel and then the other reaches down into the earth. Breathe and enjoy. And that same abdominal lift wants to be engaged here, navel in and up. Tilt the tailbone back, low belly presses toward your thighs, down and forward into the fingers and thumbs. On the inhale, come forward into your plank pose. Maybe you'll need knee down, or maybe you can come into full high plank, top of a push-up, and take it into your exhale knees, chest and chin, or lower down any way you can. Hands under the shoulders, and come up into your low cobra or full cobra, wide open heart. Exhale, roll down and release. Let the forehead touch the mat as you prepare to press back into downward facing dog. Come up through table or plank. Take another long, slow, deep breath in your downward facing dog. We'll take it into some lunges. Let the right leg sweep up back behind you. Three-legged dog, that's optional, but take that if you enjoy it. And as you exhale, step through with the right foot between the hands, coming up onto fingertips or blocks. Elongate through your spine and engage the inner thighs toward the center. And sweep the hands forward and up, coming into your kneeling warrior. A big part of what we do in our yoga practice is to cultivate those qualities of showing up as a spiritual warrior. The qualities of ahimsa, nonviolence. The qualities of having the courage to look deeply at ourselves, self-inquiry, Swadhyaya. Bring the hands back behind you, interlace your fingers. Open the heart, qualities of courage. Release.
And draw the hips back, coming into a runner stretch. Slide the heel forward and offer your heart down toward your extended leg, long spine. Qualities of Ishwara, Pranayama, surrender. Surrender to that which breathes you, that which moves through you. That which is the divinity that is you in essence. Dedicating our lives to discovering that, to live in awareness of that. Squaring your hips. One more. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, deepen, leading with the heart. Back of the neck stays long. And rolling the right foot down, come back into your lunge. We'll take it into a twist here. So you can place the left hand underneath the shoulders, right hand on the knee, and just press and twist. Those of you who want to take a deeper curl, the back toes under, lift into high lunge. And if it feels good, come into full revolved side angle, reaching right hand to the sky. Keep the inner thigh on the right side active so that your knee stays over your ankle. Big inhale, exhale, hands frame the front foot, step through plank, flow through your connecting vinyasa. Some of you might want to lower down in a low push-up into your chaturanga, keeping the body nice and long, rising up into upward dog. Others can take cobra. Upward dog lifts pelvis and thighs off of the mat and draws the shoulders back so the heart is spread wide. Meeting in downward facing dog. Take 2 long, slow breaths here. And when you're ready, lift through the left leg, 3-legged dog lifted high, 1 unbroken line. Fingers to toes. Grow a little longer through that line and gracefully step it through low lunge. So draw the right knee back a little bit more. Send the pelvis to root down into the earth and firm the left knee over the ankle. Long spine as the inner thighs draw toward the center, sweep up. Fingers reach skyward, connected to the heavens, rooted in the earth through your pelvis. Lift and engage Uddiyana Bandha just gently. Navel in and up. And exhale in that gesture of a courageous open heart, interlacing fingers, big breath, wide open heart. Yoga Mudra. Exhale, release. Fold back with the hips, slide the left heel forward. Lengthen out over that leg, runner stretch. Take a few breaths here, practicing that physical surrender into your edge. The place where the sensation is strong, where you feel the aliveness of the stretch without feeling pain. That's where the ahimsa part comes in. The ahimsa is knowing when you are hurting yourself by being macho or just trying to plow through a stretch. There's no benefit in doing that. You want to challenge yourself, but be wise as to how deeply you go into each movement, each stretch. And let every pose that we hold be an opportunity for that Swadhyaya, or self-inquiry. One more. And then rolling the left foot down, you're coming back into your low lunge. We'll take it into a twist, either pressing your left palm into your thigh to stack the left shoulder on top of the right, looking up at the sky, or lift up into high lunge and take it into revolved side angle. Long and wide, exhale, release, frame that front foot, step back into plank pose, and on your own, in your own way, flowing through your connecting vinyasa sequence. Meeting in downward facing dog. I have a visitor,
And I'm going to have to put him outside. There we go. Okay, everyone. After we've taken a breath or two in downward facing dog, let's move the feet to come between the hands, come into a forward bend. So you can take that as a little hop or a slow walk. Forward fold, as much softness in the knees as you need to. Let the head be loose. Take a moment to find some yes, no, and maybe. Take a half lift, sliding the hands up the shins so you find that Ardha Uttanasana, parallel spine to the floor. A reverse shrug with the shoulders, spreading the sit bones wide apart, lifting navel in and up. Long spine, root to crown, and then exhale, fold. Bend the knees, come sit in your chair, bring your palms into prayer position, pressing into your palms, drawing the heart toward the thumbs. Or hands can come forward, palms turn up, or reaching up to the sky. So you want to bring your weight a little more into your heels here, so you can be more upright. If you're too far forward, you're going to want to stick your butt back. So you want to be weight a little bit more into the heels. Ujjayi breath. And circle up. Long through the fingertips up to the sky, an extended mountain, and then palms come together once again in that gesture of taking refuge. Pause and feel what's alive in you. Let's take it into some balance play here. I'm going to invite you to start. We'll take it into a combination of warrior and a balance sequence. So find your mountain pose, feet hip width apart. And then take your right foot, I'll mirror you, step back a whole leg length, come into your balancing warrior. On the ball of your foot, hip pointer squared to the front, tailbone tucked, hands reach to the sky. I think I have another visitor now. And so see if you can settle into the physical posture of warrior, as well as cultivating those energetic qualities of showing up as a spiritual warrior. Just breathe with that for a moment as I share with you these words from Dr. Martin Luther King. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must ever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. Physical force with soul force. Let your arms come to your sides in crane wings, and we'll take a little spring off right into the crane pose, lifting the knee to hip height. And maybe staying right here in crane is the perfect balance practice for you, softening the standing knee so there's a micro bend. Maybe taking a little dipping of the toe in the water if you need to steady your balance. Others may want to come into tree pose if that's available to you. Once again, bringing the hands into prayer position, that place of refuge. Taking your Vrikshasana tree. And any explorations with the arms that call to you in your tree pose. Opening your branches to the sky, or maybe bringing your hands behind you in reverse namaskar. Hands in prayer pose behind the heart. Elbows drawing back. Or maybe even taking your Gomukhasana arms
Hooking fingers behind you if that feels available. One elbow up, one elbow down. And one option for those of you who want a little bit more of a juicy exploration in this balance practice, to release the hands and come right into the ballet dancer pose. We're going to take your right hand and clasp it right around your right heel with your palm facing toward your foot. And press away. Opposite arm comes out and up. And reaching your foot back behind you so your hips are nice and open. If this is available, you can play with this. It's all optional. The ballet pose. When you're ready to release, coming back through your crane pose and take that slow, mindful step back, leap of faith, back onto the ball of your foot, back into your warrior pose. Those of you who want to flow through a vinyasa to come back to standing can do that. Otherwise, you can step up into mountain pose and bring your hands to your heart. So whatever you're needing in terms of the level of vigorousness in your practice right now. Meeting back in mountain. Step back with the left foot, a leg length beyond the ball of your foot. So this in and of itself is a balance practice. And just hold here, see if you can fine-tune it and refine it by rooting the tailbone down and bringing the pubic bone forward a little bit, creating that abdominal lift, softening the shoulders, maybe having your fingers spread a little wider, our hands a little bit wider than the shoulders in that gesture of being victorious. Being victorious first over the dark places in our own mind and heart. And once we discover how to do that within ourselves, we can bring it out into the world. Meeting physical force with soul force. And let the wings open. Take that little spring off right into crane pose. Either taking a few moments of just taking flight here. Eyes soft, muscles around the jaw and the lips are soft, shoulders soft, elbows soft, wrists gentle. Either staying here, or if it's available to take it into tree pose. Hands begin in prayer. Steady yourself by rooting the tail down, lifting the lower ribs away from the hips and firming your core here. Firming the standing leg and pressing your foot with some energy into your inner thigh or calf if you're taking that version. And then any other explorations in tree that you worked with on the other side. Releasing. When you're ready to come into, those of you who want to take the dancer pose, if you want to play with that, maybe just this much would be enough of a practice. Can you just grab your heel and keep your shoulders from rounding? You want to keep your torso long and don't lose the integrity of that mountain alignment. And then pressing away into you're going to be pressing into your hand, drawing your foot to be in line with your hip rather than forward. You want to draw it straight out to the side. Opposite arm comes out to the side and lifts a little bit. Ballet pose. Wonderful hamstring stretch and hip opener. Yum, yum, yum. When you're ready, you can come back, release, come through crane, and take that leap of faith back into your warrior one. See if you can land with grace rather than with a thud. Those of you who have energy that want to flow through a connecting vinyasa one more time can do that, and then step up to mountain. Others, Hands return to the heart, that place of refuge, and just step up. And take a few moments in stillness here. Okay. And when you're ready, we're going to find our way down onto the mat. Hug your knees in toward your chest, thighs in toward your ribs, and take a little rock side to side. Legs can go straight up in the air. Hands at your side for the most simplest, gentlest inversion. Others can place your block, one block, underneath your sacrum for a little bit more lift, a little bit deeper inversion. Those of you who want to take it into full shoulder stand and plow sequence can take that. I'm going to move through it with you, but I'm going to take off my headset. Few little things to remember if you're doing your shoulder stand or plow, that you want to try to draw the elbows as close together and the shoulder blades tuck in toward the center of the back in order to do that. Plow can be done with a straight legs or bent knee. In either case, you want to try to reach your sitting bones straight up toward the sky and try to get long in your spine rather than being really rounded in the back. See if you can get a little bit more lift of the sit bones straight up to the sky. It's okay if your feet don't touch the mat behind you. Just keep supporting yourself with your hands on either side of the low back. And you can even, that might be a good option to release some of the tension there by bending your knees and framing your side of your head with your bent knees. So lots of ways to explore this. If you're taking the full expression of plow and your toes are curled under, press back through the heels, press out through the heels, and lift the backs of the knees to the sky. Soften the knees and roll down, releasing your shoulder stand and plow sequence. And take it right into Shavasana for a moment, just to integrate. See if you can let this moment of Shavasana be a softening and a melting and a letting go, feeling the reverberation of that sequence of asanas energetically within you. With the legs extended in front of you, just bring the feet together, knees pointed up, toes pointed up. And roll, just sort of shift to one side so you can roll the arms, tuck the arms under the body. See if you can tuck even the upper arms as much under the body as you can. So you're sitting on the backs of your hands. We're going to take the fish pose. So the buttocks sit on the backs of the hands, palms down, and really walk those shoulder blades toward the center. So even that, even just doing this, you're getting that nice open heart. And if it feels available to you, press into the elbows and forearms. Imagine that string, that golden cord from the heavens, lifting your heart to the sky, arching the back. If it's comfortable, you can let the head go back. Otherwise, don't take this pose. The crown of the head gently presses into the mat, but not bearing weight. Just going to gently touch. The weight is, you're bearing the weight in your forearms and elbows. So you should be able to lift and lower your head by pressing into your elbows and forearms and palms. Let that golden cord lift your heart a little higher to the sky. Take a deep breath in and stick out your tongue and exhale with a just clearing out stagnant energy in the throat chakra. Another deep breath in. Part of showing up as a spiritual warrior is to be able to speak our truth in the face of injustice, to be able to be brave enough to speak out, to come out of our comfort zone and say the difficult things that need to be said. Deep breath in, and once again, little bit more lift through the heart. Press into the elbows, lift the head enough to just bring the back of the head down and come out, let your arms come out from under you, palms turn up, Shavasana. And feel the reverberation of this practice, the fish pose, in every cell. Yoga practice is about shifting consciousness. And we do that begin by working with the outer layers of our being, the physical body and the breath, so that we can then work with the more subtle layers of consciousness. Bend the knees and prepare for bridge pose so the heels line up with the sitting bones, knees pointed to the sky, feet are hip width apart. Palms down at your sides, walk your fingers toward the direction of your feet, and roll up slowly into your Setu Bandhasana bridge pose. Hip pointers to the sky, inner thighs engage so the knees stay over the ankles rather than splaying out. Pressing the hips up, pressing the heart up and toward the chin, and if it's available to tuck the shoulders toward one another, upper arms under the body, clasp hands, lift, lift, lift. Press the top of the chest toward the chin, expand through the heart. Ujjayi breath. See if you can hold for 2 more deep breaths. Unclasp the hands, spread the arms beside you and roll down. You might want to hug your knees into Apanasana one more time. We're going to take one more round of bridge with a variation. Okay. Just to get a little hip opener here and a little more challenge with our bridge pose. Hands by your sides. I invite you to roll up again into your bridge pose. Some of you might find you're ready, that this would be easier to do with a block underneath your sacrum, so you can decide whether you need that. Have your block nearby. So you can do it as supported bridge, or you can do it freestyle. But as you find your expression of the bridge pose here, see if you can inhale and lift the right leg straight up to the sky so it goes vertical. Straight up without letting the hips sink down. You're going to feel that energy in the one leg that's supporting you.
And then bending that right knee, turning it out to the side, come right into a figure 4 pose, letting just above the ankle come to the center of the thigh, of the left thigh. Roll the hip open so your knees are level with one another, but keep the hips lifting to the sky and level with one another. Keeping the figure 4 legs, unclasp your hands and roll the spine down. And then draw your left thigh in toward your ribs and thread your right hand through the space between your legs, clasping behind your left thigh or left shin. So you're coming into a supine pigeon. A little bit of IT band stretch and glute stretch, hip opener. Hug it in, feel the juice of that. Just send your breath to places where there's tightness or restriction. And one more breath. And release. Bring your feet back into preparation for bridge pose. Hands down by your sides. Roll the hips up into bridge. Some of you may have a block under you. Some of you will be tucking your upper arms toward one another to give you that lift and support, clasping hands. And then press your left foot straight up to the sky. Left leg is perpendicular to the body. Hips stay higher than the heart. Oh yeah. I'm going to move right into the figure 4. So bend that left knee and find above your left ankle meets right thigh. Keep the hip pointers level, the hip creases level with one another. Rotate open that left hip so the knees are level with one another. Lift it high. Keep the heart open. And when you're ready to release, unclasp your hands and slowly roll down. Keep your figure 4 legs. And then now you're going to draw your right thigh in and find a place where you can clasp your hands, either behind your right thigh or around your right shin. Hug that right thigh in and press that left knee away. When you're ready, release your figure 4 pose. I'm going to invite you to come into any final posture that would help you feel complete with your practice. If there's a twist that calls to you, either bringing both knees down to one side and turning your gaze in opposite direction, or maybe you want to take twisted root with your legs wrapped in eagle legs, or maybe simply extending one leg and making the other knee bent, foot on top of the thigh or knee of your extended leg, taking straight leg, bent knee over straight leg twist. So if there's a final twist that calls to you, or maybe you want to take your happy baby pose, or maybe just bringing the soles of the feet together in bound angle, supine bound angle if you want a little more hip opener here. Do what feels intuitively right for you to help you feel complete with your asana flow.
And if you haven't yet switched to the other side, if you're doing a twist, this is a good time to make that transition. And when you're ready, please find your way into Shavasana, corpse pose. For one of the most important practices that we do on the mat, which is practicing surrender. One of those yamas and niyamas that I talked about at the beginning of class today are qualities that we cultivate in ourselves and how we move through the world. And perhaps the most challenging, most difficult one of all is the practice of Ishwara Pranidhana, surrender to God. Now you can fill in the blank if the word God isn't comfortable for you. Surrendering to that river of grace that flows through your life, that carries you, that which breathes you, that which is your essential nature, that which is beyond your egoic mind. Lots of names for it: source, infinite mind, divine energy. Whatever you call it, however you envision it, probably the highest practice that we do is to learn to live surrendered to that, so that all of our words, our thoughts, and actions are informed by that, are in alignment with that, are an expression of that. Another quote from Dr. King, he said, "Use me, God. Show me how to take who I am, who I want to be, and what I can do, and use it for a purpose greater than myself." That is Ishwara Pranidhana, surrender to God. So let this practice on the mat of physical surrender, as you let every muscle in your body soften and release into the earth. As you release the control of the breath and just allow the breath to breathe you. As you let the out-breath carry away anything that's happening in the thinking mind, so that you become completely empty. Let that be your practice of Ishwara Pranidhana. Surrender.
When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony within the home. When there's harmony within the home, there's order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there is peace in the world. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony within the home. When there's harmony within the home, there's order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there is peace in the world. Begin to deepen your breath and bring some movement to the fingers and toes. Any movements that bring you back into present time, back into your body. Ready, you can roll over onto one side into your fetal position. And press yourself up to a seated position, your yoga asana. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony within the home. When there's harmony within the home, there's order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there is peace in the world. You can join me on that last phrase. Peace in the world. 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 Bringing the hands together in prayer position in front of your heart. Once again, reminding ourselves that that place of refuge exists within us. And that our work in the world is to practice being that light, cultivating that light in the soul. And it starts right here with this breath that you are breathing right now. And taking a deep breath in, let's close our practice with the sound of Om. Taking you off mute.
Thank you, Jyoti.
Anyone has anything to
That's
say,
great. Thank you.
any questions or comments? I just want to, let's offer each other first a namaste.
Namaste.
That light in the soul in me sees and honors that light in you.
Namaste.
Namaste.